Okay, yes, hello everyone, and welcome to this second session of the validation training. As I explained in my first session, to be able to do validation, you need to understand, and that is the most important word in all of this. You need to understand what you're looking at, what you're looking for, and what you need to do when you find it. So I'm going to move on. Today's session is going to be about the tools and how we handle the different tools and what's available to us to be able to assist us in validation. Remember, the change we're making in our minds, the change that we are making in our minds is that we are not thinking about what to map and how to map it and looking for new things to map. What we are doing is looking for mistakes and errors. And that's what our concentration is when we are validating. Our mind changes from looking for things to map to finding things that are wrong. Right, to be able to go on now, let's just see if I can share my screen. Let's just see. Hope this works. Yes, that's going to work. Share screen. So,
as Ralph prepares, I just want to share. Unfortunately, Joe Ziolin is sick this week. So a lot of the translations on the slides that Ralph will be showing, it's directly from Google Translate. If what we'll do is after this meeting, next week we'll reach out to Joe Ziolin again when he's feeling better to get him to review the translations and edit it, and then I'll upload it to LearnWorlds. In the meantime, I would also say that if you have any questions, let us know, including in Burmese. We'll use Google Translate to see what the question is, and I can clarify. I hope that is helpful. Ralph, we saw your screen.
okay, hopefully my screen is there.
Yes.
Right, okay, great, starting to come together. Now let's just see. So, okay, what we will be discussing today is the validation tools. What is available. I won't be showing you how to use them in this session. There are 3 more sessions after this, and that's when we will really start getting into what you will actually be doing. But introducing you to what is available is just as important as knowing how to find the errors, because you need these. Right. So 3 of the main tools that you will be using is the Tasking Manager, the JOSM editor, and the map features. Now, this is not all, this is not the whole list. There will be, you will need to understand and know the ID editor, because when you find a person who's making a consistent mistake, you want to try and correct them. And if they are using the ID editor, you will need to know what to tell them, how to work with the ID editor to correct their mistakes. So that's also important is things like OSM char or OSM change that you can use for individual people who are making continuous errors, where you can go back and see where they have worked and what they've been doing. So there are other available, but these are the 3 main ones that you need to have. Right, starting off with the Tasking Manager, which is your entry, as everybody's entry into mapping for humanitarian and finding the projects to work on. So the hot tasking manager, it's got various statistics and data that help you as a validator to look for the mappers you need to find, the status of those mappers, the progress being made. So there's a whole lot of things in the tasking manager that are available to you that to the ordinary mapper is not necessary, but for the validator is definitely a must. There's a link there. You can learn more about the basics of the tasking manager, and in the link below. Of course, these slides and video will be available to you afterwards, so you can go back and refresh. I will cover a lot of things here. I do not expect that you will remember all of them. However, I will attempt to give you enough information for you to be able to go back and look for them and learn to understand them. There is a lot. This is a steep learning curve, so there is a lot to take in. Please, you need to experiment with the various things so that you get to understand them. Right. The JOSM editor and the ID editor are also the two tools that you will be needing to understand and know. Definitely the JOSM editor is your best friend when it comes to validation. There are various plugins for the JOSM validator. I will go through some of these as we move forward. And you can see that there's quite a range here. This isn't all of them. I would not recommend that you load all of them up into your JOSM. Certainly be selective. There's also what we call map paint styles. And all of these are also very, very helpful and useful for you to be able to use. Okay, map features is your Bible as far as tagging is concerned and what you can show and how to show it. So please, even though other projects may say, please refer to the Africa highways, the map features is your Bible. This is pure OSM, unadulterated, unchanged. This is kept up to date. And this is your tagging example that you must refer to. Right, so you can see map features. I'm showing you this because there is a Myanmar version in Burmese, and this has been translated by volunteers, and I will explain a bit about that later on. So I'm going to come out of this now. You have now an idea of what we are going to be looking at today. So let's just see if I can start off with the tasking manager. Of course, the first thing you need to do is up in the top right-hand corner here is to sign up for the tasking manager. Log in with your OpenStreetMap username, and then you can change the language. However, if you will note here, there is no Burmese language version for the tasking manager. There are calls for people to explore and do and help. One of the things that is needed in helping is certainly translations. This is very helpful for those who have difficulty with English or other languages. So please, if you know of translators who would be prepared to help, then that would be very useful and very helpful for us. Okay, so you have got the tasking manager. Joining the community is purely also signing up and or logging in. You go to the Explore Projects page, and you have a list of projects that you need to find. You are going to be looking for specific projects. First of all, as we are here and our specific intention is to tackle the Myanmar projects, you would want to look for Myanmar projects. The next thing that you would be interested in is all those projects that are being mapped by beginners, because beginners are the people who make the most mistakes. And we need to help them and correct them. And we have already proved in the past on various studies that giving feedback to mappers is a crucial part of helping to retain them and keep them mapping. And that's what we need to do, is to keep these mappers on board, because the longer they map, the more experienced they become. And the more experienced they become, the more useful they are to us, and the less validation we need to do to keep the maps up to a good standard. Right, to start off now, there are various ways of seeing this. Here we are, we can see a map version, so that you use the show map to see a map version, and you can see that mapping going on. This is all the projects that are at the present moment published and active. If we zoom in and look at our target area of Myanmar, we can see there's quite a lot of active projects on the go at the present moment, and they are all pretty active and needing validation, which is why we are training validators. Right, now, next thing is that you can actually call this up in a list form, and this can be downloaded and used as a spreadsheet for you to keep track of what is going. Now, this is ideal management, and this is also ideal for looking for projects that are almost complete, that you can jump in and just complete the validation so that the projects are 100% complete. Right, so those are the ways of viewing the projects. Now we also have filters. Right, on the top here, you have a list of a number of filters that you can use to search your projects. Of course, let's just see if we want to concentrate on the Myanmar projects. We can go to location here and start typing in Myanmar, click on that and apply. What you will get on your screen is all the active projects, the projects that are at present ready for mapping and validating. Now you'll see at the beginning, the higher levels, urgent and high, are likely to have the disaster mapping. And remember, in the first session, I said that that was an absolute priority because of the time factor and the life-saving effect of getting that mapping to the people on the ground as quickly as possible. So that's what you will find here. You are able to select the archive projects to see what has happened in the past, or you can select all projects if you want to oversee those. The next thing, of course, is the difficulty level. The easy projects are what the beginners mostly are mapping on. So you would look for easy projects, and when you click on that, that reduces it down. There's only one easy project. So we can see that a lot of these projects are restricted to intermediate mapper or above, or to teams. So let's go back to all so that we have a complete. So you can see the project status we've looked at already. You can go published or archived. You can sort it by urgent ones, active projects, new projects. So you can see there's a whole range of things. The most validated, if you want to finish off projects that are almost complete, you can go to the most validated and get those finished off. Right, so there's a lot there. There's a learning section. So if you want to go back and look, there's Learn OSM has a number of different points. Now, Learn OSM also has languages, and Learn OSM is there for everyone to use, and also will need help in translations. There is a Myanmar page for the Learn OSM, so that will also help. But you will see there are different videos here to also help you. And Learn OSM has a section on validation. It might need some help with the translation, but once you are up and running and you do understand, maybe that's something you might want to look at. Right, so we have looked at the tasking manager here. I'm now going to go to my page. I am signed in, so I go to my, up in the right-hand corner, I go to my settings. Okay, there's certain things that I would like you to look at. First of all, I would like you to switch on disaster response as one of your preferences. Disaster response is those ones that are actively needing attention as quickly as possible. The first 7 days saves lives. Right, the other thing that I want you to do is for expert mode. I want you to switch on expert mode. This opens up a whole lot of other things in the statistics and availability of tools for you to use. The other thing I want you to do is to look at your language, okay? And you can look through here, but I don't think there is no Burmese here. No. Okay, so there is something else that would need translating and help with. So there is another part of this that you could help your fellow mappers. And the last thing that I'm talking about here is your editor. Now, I want you to be using JOSM as your editor of choice, because this is what you will be using to validate. Right, notifications. You want notifications for questions and comments. This is where the validators ask questions and expect answers from the project creator and the managers. This is important so that you know what has been discussed and what the problems are with the project that you are validating. You also want to switch on any mentions emails. So any emails that mention you, you need to get a notification. The others I do have on because that is important for me to keep track on what is going on. You will decide what other ones that you want to switch on so that you get full information for the projects you're working on. Right.
Hi, Ralph. I just
Yes.
want to take this short couple of minutes just to run through it again, because it seems extremely important for our fellow gurus. So on the settings page, there are a couple of important sections that you would like them to focus on. Let me share my screen and see if I can recap what the important sections, and let me know if I missed out anything. So with interest itself, it's important that we identify the right one so that the tasking manager could recommend the right kind of projects for us. At settings, you are recommending that we have the expert mode on so that we can have access to different kind of potential new features. I'm going to leave mine as an ID editor because I'm going to have to run through the Mappathon later. But for the gurus, especially as you go through the trainings, the recommendation is for you to change this to JOSM, so that it's very easy for you to quickly jump to JOSM to make the edits. Unfortunately, there is no Burmese at the moment. And yeah, where possible, we can have everything on, but emails are helpful for you to be aware of the comments or questions whenever you are away from Asking Manager. With that, did I miss out anything, Ralph?
No, you've done pretty well, gone through all of that. That's good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I hope this is helpful for the gurus. I'm handing the presentation back to you.
Thank you. Okay, my screen back up and running, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's lovely. Right, I'm going to get back into what we were doing. Right, so right, so we've done using the tabs and filters, and let's have a look in the projects themselves. So we open up a project, of course, urgent. It shows you on a map where it is and what it looks like. You can zoom in and have a look, and you can see that a lot of mapping still needs to be done. The blue tasks are those that need validation, and the orange tasks are those that have been invalidated. Right, so here we have all of this. Now, it's important for each project is to check who can validate. Okay, so this is important because you may be locked out and not able to validate. Now, here we are looking at intermediate and advanced validation team members, and a list of the teams are available here. So that is important. Now, the next one that I want you to know, just below that, is, remember I asked you to switch on the questions and comments. Now here are the questions and comments that will likely be notified about, where validators are noting different things and different points. JOSM is one of our top global validators. You can see here he's questioning some of these objects, and Sam Colchester from Hot Start has responded and is talking about them, also about surrounding walls and structures. So you can see that it helps you to understand what you are looking at by reading and understanding the questions that are being asked by experienced validators. And this will help you to progress with your own understanding of validation. So this is why questions and comments should be switched on. And that is important. Right, you can see here the tasks are all listed in their progress. Now, this looks okay. It's not too bad a curve, but sometimes we get a drop where one of these nodes suddenly drops way below something else. And that's where a mass revert has happened, or a number of tasks have been invalidated, in which case the progress of the mapping will drop back and go back up again. If there are a number of dips along here, you know that this project is having difficulties and will need some help. Right, you can see the validation progress is steady upwards curve. This is good in actual fact, but it's very seldom that we have projects where the validation curve actually follows the mapping curve. We always lag behind. Now, the reason for this, of course, I explained earlier, is that is far less validators than there are mappers. So we need to use our time wisely. So if you'll see here a download task grids. Now this is used for when we're doing a third pass. We can download all of the task grids onto a JOSM, and we can then fill them with the features, and we can do a single a validation across the whole project to see how many errors and warnings have been missed. So, but that's what we call third pass, once the whole project has been completed and is getting ready for archiving. Now, hopefully, once you become more experienced mappers, you will move on to doing third pass validation before the project gets archived, so that we know that it's clean and we're happy with it. So, but that's not what we're going to be worrying about now. Third pass is something for later on when you become more experienced. So this is the project. Yes.
Sorry. I'm jumping in again. Can you share the graph again? I think it's something interesting that I would like to share with the gurus. So for the gurus, after this project, you will go on to support many more other mapping activities. And you'll find that you will need the help of your fellow mappers to help push progress in certain areas or for certain disasters. This is a very powerful way for us to keep track, like, hey, can we finish this on time? And it allows us then to know that maybe at a certain point of time, I need to remobilize people. I need to use Facebook to call for more support. Another thing that Ralph has mentioned is about validation. It is true. Validation takes time. And I will tell you, in our experience across so many different disaster responses, validation is the most difficult to mobilize support for. And it's very often slower, significantly slower than mapping progress. On this note, then, I think throughout this entire project, what we're trying to do is to link you up with different resources, with different communities, and even with experts such as Ralph, so that you can tap onto their networks, for example, to see if they can contribute to this kind of mapping progress or maybe a certain disaster response in the future. I hope this is a quick sharing for you how you could use this for your future mapping activities. Ralph, back to you. If I'm correct or wrong, please correct me.
No, thank you, Bernard. That was very good and very insightful. Right. Going back, we now go take a quick trip to the contribute page. And on the contribute page, you have very important, the first thing that you do is to read the instructions. Okay, the instructions tell you why the mappers are mapping the way they are, because they have read that. What they should be doing is also listed there. And it's also important for you to know the instructions so that when you start validating and you see that the validators are doing something that is not correct, and you think that the instructions are the reason why that's happening, you can go to the questions and comments and call up the creator of the project to correct the instructions to help the mappers to map correctly. Or if there's something missing, and you can ask them to add a certain instruction if too many people are not squaring their buildings. Now, squaring the buildings is, of course, the most common problem with the ID editor. It does not have the fancy JOSM style building tool that automatically tags and squares the building. So this is something that gets overlooked in the enthusiasm to draw buildings. So, right, so there you are. Now, important is the imagery. I try to get the creators to put the imagery first. because depending on what imagery they are drawing from will depend on how recent or how badly or well they actually map. And the two things that are most important is to know whether you align the imagery with the existing mapped features, or whether you align the mapped features with the imagery. That is the important part of the imagery that you need to understand, so that you know if everything is being aligned correctly. You are going to find out that some people don't understand that, and they will map to the first item that they actually see. So if ID editor opens up with Bing as background imagery, and you actually know that they should be mapping with Esri, then you are going to see that it's out of alignment with the rest of the mapping. So it's important to understand which way round they should be aligning the mapping to the imagery or imagery to the mapping, and that is most important. Of course, there are other instructions and things that are also helpful for you to be able to look at and understand, and little tips about data quality. There is a mention, please do not erase or edit already existing data. This is for inexperienced mappers at intermediate level, or newly advanced mappers, to understand, because they don't quite yet know how to find out whether there is local knowledge that is attached to any of the buildings or to the detail. And just deleting one section of road could break a whole bus route relation, or other admin boundaries, administrative boundaries. So you can see that deleting an item can cause other problems other than just that road is missing. So please understand why they would ask you not to erase or edit. However, as an experienced validator, I would hope that you would have a better understanding whether something needs to be deleted or not. And an example of this, of course, is duplicated buildings, one building on top of another. Now, this happens with the ID editor because of certain ways, but I'll chat about that a little bit later. So there it is. You've got all of that. Now, contributions. You see here on the left is the person's name, and they've got little stars alongside, and a half star alongside here. And we won't find any that have no stars, because this is limited to intermediate and advanced mappers. But if there's no star next to the name, that means they are a beginner mapper. And the beginner mappers are the ones that you would be looking for to edit first. Now, the next ones along would be looking for, in this case, the intermediate mappers. And if an intermediate mapper has only done one task square, go in, check that task square. It's quite easy. Just click next to it, and it will highlight the task square that that person has mapped. So you can go to that person's mapping and check their mapping, and move your way up to look at other intermediate mappers before moving on to the advanced. Now, you'll see that some of the advanced mappers have got 46 and 29 tasks. Those are reasonably experienced people who would be doing a lot. So go down and look for those who have just done one task. You may be finding new advanced mappers who are still busy feeling their way as well. So please, validating is something that needs to be done. Concentrating the start on those who need the most help and need the most checking. Now, also important is the red areas are, actually this doesn't have it, there are red areas in here which are areas of most importance. This project does not have that, although it's got this red outline. So this is where you would concentrate mostly your validating before moving to the peripherals. We do know that when mappers first start out, they go for the easy projects to start with. And most of the more difficult projects get left, most of the more difficult tasks get left until the end of the project. So but we need to concentrate on that and help with that. If you go to the tasks, if you find one mapper is doing a lot of things that are wrong, let's just select one. Let's just say this one here. I copy their name, I go to the tasks, and I can paste their name, Control copy, Control V, and paste their name in, and I can see all their projects. Here I can say most recently done or sort by task number, most recently updated, the least recently updated. So you can go to the oldest projects and have a look at those first, because that person might make mistakes in their oldest project, and then you look at their most recent project so that you can check, are they still making the same mistake? If they are still making the same mistakes, then you know all 49 projects are possibly having those mistakes, and you need to go and check and invalidate or correct, whichever is the quickest way forward. So there's an example of how you can use the tasking manager to find the people who need your input the most. And that's just quickly. Now, let's move on, because we are having to look at time. So let me go to the JOSM now, and get rid of that layer. Right, in your JOSM, you will see the golden rule: don't copy from other maps and have fun. So when you find out you are not having any fun anymore, you need to switch from validation and go back to mapping for a while. We don't want you to burn out. We don't want you to get despondent. And always looking at errors and mistakes is going to make you feel a bit despondent. So please recognize that when it's happening and switch your mapping, switch back to mapping for a while. Okay, now you can see here, JOSM needs help with translation. There is no Burmese version of the JOSM at this stage, so that is would be very helpful for the rest of your mappers. They do ask for that, and you can contribute down here. Contribute at the bottom. It tells you help translating JOSM, so you can see that there is links for you to go there if that is what you want to try and do. So please, that is important. Now, there are two ways of getting into JOSM. The one is to click on a task in a project and say validate. The other one is to use what we call the Slippy map. And this Slippy map is something that we have here. And you can zoom in and download an area. So you can select an area and download. Now that's if you just want to have a look and check something in your own town or other areas. If you download direct from the tasking manager, then you will get an automatic background anyway. So I'm just going to add a background here, put in Bing for the moment, so that we have something. Now, what we are going to be looking for here in JOSM is how do we get up and running. Now, in your JOSM, there is this little icon with the two straps, look like wristwatches. up on the top here, and you click on that. This is called preferences. And in your preferences, you have a whole series of different things. There are things that you don't desperately need, but they are helpful to you. So let's just give you an idea of what we can do. Remember, to help you with positioning, you can download the GPS tracks on the GPX lines, and sometimes they are so thin, the default is so thin that it's very difficult seeing them. Now here is a place where you can draw large GPS points, so you can select directional arrows or drawing points. You can do things with that to enhance it so that you can see them better. Colors, depending on your ability, your sight, your screen resolution, you can adjust some of the colors so that they are more helpful to you, and you can see that you can go to some bright colors and some dull colors. So you can change. There's in the paint styles, input validation, you can change the colors to suit yourself. That's something you can play around with. It's not that important. Of course, the language, as I said, you can determine what languages you want, and you can see that Burmese is not here. And so it would be helpful if you do some translations as well. We go down to other things like keyboard shortcuts. Now, this is a quick way of learning how to map, so that when you are mapping, you can use Control A or simply press A for line tool. You can press S for select tool. You can press B for buildings, and you can interchange very quickly just knowing the different shortcut keys. So you can find the shortcut keys here under the preferences. There's a data validator. Now this is the inline validation tool that everybody uses. I want you to make sure that everything is switched on. So you can see here that you've got duplicate ways, duplicate relations. Everything here is switched on so that you can find all the errors. However, if you are doing a very specific subject search, you can switch a lot of those off and just look for single errors. I don't advise this as a general validation, but certainly for very specific projects, you can do that so that you don't have the clutter. Imagery, here you can either up on the imagery at the top here, or down using your preferences. You can select which imagery you want to call up. Now, the one that I expect you to have is the, see if it finds it, the open cycle map, which I've got already in. So you can see the open cycle map down here, I've already loaded, and the open topo map I have already loaded. Both of these background imageries give you contours, and the contours help you to find things like waterway runoff. So you can see that whether the waterway is running downhill. It also lets you know if you're not sure, is that a road or a waterway? A waterway will not go up over the top of a mountain or hill and down the other side. So if it does do that, then the chances are that you're looking at a road and not a waterway. So that is helpful in that way. So those two, I definitely suggest that you have open. Now, I talked about map paint styles. The map paint styles are particularly of importance. Map paint styles are the ones that help you to find errors and highlight errors visually on your JOSM. I would suggest that when you are working with new mappers on JOSM, you can ask them that to switch on the item called inline validation. So that's the one here. Inline validation should be opened up and switched on, and this will actually show up errors while they're actually mapping. Now, it's also a good idea for you to do that yourself. It picks up when you have done something wrong or not, or when you're looking at an item in the screen, you will see where errors are existing. All right, so I have listed a number of them already that you should be switching on in the presentation. There are a number of other tools which you will have a look at later on. One of those is the will it come up? No, okay. Okay, it's not coming up, but it's called a reverter. And this is for reverting change sets where the person has made a complete mess or been has been vandalizing the mapping. So that is important. But that will only become useful once you become a more senior validator, and you can check change sets and invalidate or revert mapping. It's useful, in actual fact, before reverting, is to discuss it with someone else to make sure that you are not doing damage to the map. So there's a whole lot of these which you need to experiment with and have a look at what you want to use. There is one that would be of importance at the present moment. Is the PT assistant. That is an important one because it gives you a thing called the double split for quickly doing bridges, breaking roads for bridges, breaking waterways for culverts. So that is an important tool to have on board. Now, the other one that is important is plugins. Now you can find the plugins and the map paint styles. Both of them are here. There are important important items here in the plugins, like the building tool, change set viewer, map with AI, PT assistant. You also have a thing called relations validation. That is quite an important one, and relations dissolve. So you can, in actual fact, combine a number of relations, but this is more important in advanced mapping when you are getting more into it. There is a list of the plugins that you need in the presentation, and I would expect you to have a look at those. So there you are. You've had a look at the plugins, the map paint styles, and the preferences that are available in JOSM. Right now, what I need you to do is to understand that when you are looking at a task, the important thing here is to know all of the people that are mapping. So you can drag your select tool around the entire task square, and authors on the side here, authors, opens up a panel, and you can see a list of the authors and how much work they have done. The same way you can select an author, a single mapper, select that mapper, and it will just highlight the mapping that that person has done. Remember to run your validation tool with all the features switched on, and you will get a list of validation errors which are highlighted with a yellow background, or if you need to, you can change that background color so that you can see easier. That's up to you what color you want to use, but my default is yellow. You get a list of warnings here, and that is errors and warnings that you need to look at to understand what is going on. Right, so lastly but not least, let's just have a look at the, I'm going to come out of this, so let's get rid of that. And OpenStreetMap, let's just see. I'm going to go to ID editor, so I'll open up the ID editor once it will let me. You have to zoom in. ID editor will not allow you to edit right. So there we go. I've got my ID editor. And the things that I want to point out to you is, first of all, when the ID editor opens up, is you can point out to people that once it reaches validation, you have to zoom in quite a lot. So you can see the problem that they have with ID editor. You can't see a large area, you have to zoom in. Now I've got a large screen, so you're seeing quite a much bigger area. They can get bigger areas by closing the panels, but that's it. Now, the two items that I want you to understand is down at the bottom right here. The one is the orange. The orange one tells you how many warnings and errors existing in that area. So you can see there's quite a few, with that one saying 37. And the other important thing is this one. It is telling you that there are 3,192 buildings in that area that are not showing. Now, new people with the ID editor do not understand that there are hidden features, so they zoom in and they say, okay, all of these buildings have not been drawn, and they start drawing buildings. They do not understand that there are buildings which will appear as they zoom in. So if you find someone who is in actual fact producing duplicated buildings, the instruction for you to give is for them to zoom in to find all the hidden buildings. So this is another problem with the ID editor. So you can see there are a number. Now, the other one is with the issues. The issues are supposed to help people to understand, but if they only have my edits in view switched on, then all they're going to see is their own, and all you are going to see is your own. If you're going to go into the ID editor to see what is there and wrong, you have to say everything everywhere. If you have a person who is marking tasks complete, you'll need to ask them to switch on everything everywhere so that they can see if there are any problems and errors that need fixing before they mark the task as complete. And you can see here, building, crossing, building, building, crossing, building. So you can see there's a whole lot of errors that need fixing. But they can't see those because they're not zoomed in enough. So those are problems that exist with the ID editor. And you need to understand these problems so that you can advise people how to keep mapping. Now, just quickly moving on, I'm going to go to the map features. Now, remember, that is translation for this in Myanmar. It is a very good, it is very comprehensive, and you can select your key buildings or highways or waterways, and it gives you good examples of each one. Not only does it give good examples of each one, but it also takes you to a wiki page. So you can go to each individual one and it will discuss what they understand as a bungalow, and also what alternatives you can put in, and whether you can use it as a node or an area. All of these instructions here: generic single detached house is building detached, building levels 1. It gives you clues on what you can and can't do. So the tasking manager is your friend. You will go there and check, can that happen? Which way does a cliff edge have to face? Those are all things that you can look at in the tasking manager. Please explore and experiment. This tasking manager is very, very comprehensive. Right, I have gone through all of the tools that you will be needing and using. The next sessions will be discussing how you're going to use them and what you're going to use them for. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and I pass you back to Bernard.
Thanks a lot, Ralph. Very excited to look forward. I'm very excited and I'm looking forward to the next session where we'll dive into using JOSM and work with Ralph to go through real life examples of how you can use JOSM to validate certain maps in Myanmar.